That's an app that a lot of people use. And somebody got on. I mean, happened to know the guy's a total sleazebag. The Atlantic is a failed magazine. Does very, very poorly. Nobody gives a damn about it. This gives it a little bit of a shot. And I will tell you this: that they've made up more stories, and they're just a failing magazine. The public understands that. He's a very good man.
President Trump tearing into the Atlantic journalist who is claiming to have been included in a sensitive chat with top intelligence officials over a war strike in Yemen. But his remarks come as Democrats in Congress have a different attitude. Lawmakers grilling top intel leaders during a global threats hearing on the leaked chat. They demanded the resignation of top officials. Ranking member Mark Warner posted on X moments before the hearing, when the stakes are this high, incompetence is not an option. Pete Hegseth should resign. Mike Waltz should resign. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden echoed those calls.
I want to make clear that I'm of the view that there ought to be resignation, starting with the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of Defense.
Joining me now is the CEO of the Federalist, Sean Davis, former counselor to President Trump, and Fox News contributor Kellyanne Conway, and Daily Signal national correspondent Tony Kinnett. Thank you all for being with us today. Kellyanne, I'd love to start with you. I had a heated exchange a little bit earlier in the program about this and what I think about the entire incident. I characterized it as a mistake, an embarrassing mistake, but one that's being blown out of proportion. What do you think?
I agree with you. It is a mistake. And we know that we should all have two goals every day when we wake up: non-perfection, which I tend to meet every day, and non-repetition of mistakes. So you apologize, you make sure it doesn't happen again. I don't have Jeffrey Goldberg in my contacts for a reason. I think President Trump made that very clear today, and he has every right to call out the reporter here because that reporter has lied before. We had, Nick Ayers, former chief of staff to Mike Pence, come out and say it was a lie, that what Jeffrey Goldberg was saying. Others came forward, even those who are no longer really supporters of or in touch with President Trump, defended his honor and his words against other Goldberg attacks. Here's the most important point. We know what's happened, as goes the Houthis, between the last two presidents. This is the most important thing. We've actually seen the fruits of those so-called war plans, which is just a term of art by a reporter who's not a national security official.
Yes.
We know that President Biden, he took the Houthis off the foreign terrorist organizations almost immediately, and all that did was embolden Iran-backed Houthis to disrupt traffic in the Red Sea, to basically have tolls being put there by Iran, and more importantly, to target our brave men and women in uniform. And what did President Trump do, Will? He immediately put them back on the foreign terrorist organization. And whether it's in this group chat or not, the fact is our troops and America herself is safer right now because of President Trump's leadership, a commander-in-chief who has taken out these terrorists and has actually stopped the disruption in the Red Sea and other waterways.
And in the end, Kellyanne, that's the story in the end. In the end, that is what happened and what matters to the American people. But I do want to dig in because you made an important point, war plans. It's a term of art in the media, but it means something specific in the Pentagon. So, Sean, I'm going to play for you what Jeffrey Goldberg said last night on CNN.
That's a lie. He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. When targets were going to be targeted, how they were going to be targeted, who was at the targets, when the next sequence of attacks were happening. I made the decision that the technical aspects of this, including what kinds of weapons packages, the attack sequencing, and so on, that's not necessarily in the public interest. What's in the public interest is that they were running a war plan on a messaging app and didn't even know who was invited into the conversation. I mean, it's an obvious, ridiculous security breach.
So, Sean, Kellyanne makes the operative point here. And if anybody truly wants to understand and not just score points, this is the point to understand. Goldberg's not trustworthy, but even if he is telling the truth, he could be too stupid to know what he's talking about. Did he see war plans, or did he see real-time updates from the Secretary of Defense to people in the administration? That is not war plans.
Yeah, to me, it's similar to if someone heard a coach say, yeah, we're going to run the ball against him when we're going to play a strong pass defense. It's saying, oh, he leaked his playbook. We suddenly knew what he was doing. That's total nonsense. And you can even see how Goldberg made a melodramatic way of referring to it. Instead of saying, we're going to bomb them, he said, oh, they use specific weapon systems. No, they just said we're going to bomb them. And to the point that there wasn't classified information on there, so obviously there couldn't have been war plans. At one point, Secretary of Defense Hegseth even says, hey, all the stuff we've talked about, there will be communications on the high side that people will need to review.
Yes.
That was a reference to the actual classified system that they have for this information. An informal chat where everyone's trying to get aligned ahead of time. They're not war plans. They're not operational tactics. Jeffrey Goldberg knows this. But unfortunately, he may be right in that his readers over at The Atlantic are probably too stupid to understand the distinction.
Such a good point, though. At one point acknowledging, let's go to the high side, so that they're acknowledging what they're talking about here is not classified. There's more bigger secrets let's talk about on the high side, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really awkward move by Goldberg, who does what a lot of political columnists already understand. And Sean, you can back me up on this one. You can take a story, right? You can pick a little bit of what you're going to expose, and then you can suggest that the real smoking gun is hidden behind. And he did that. He alludes, he says, minute by minute war plan strategies. He later on suggested he was given weather updates, which, whoa, top secret weather updates being shared. My goodness. And that's like the smoking gun, but we don't get to see that. They asked Gabbard about it today. She says, well, there's no national intelligence classification that I know on the material. Hegseth says they weren't war plans, so it's a poker game. They've called your bluff.
Right.
Let's see your cards, Jeffrey. What was this damning stuff shared on Signal?
And to me, it's not whether or not they exist. I'm sure he has something, but whether or not he's properly framing it as war plans that jeopardized American lives as we head into this day. Always smart, each making very individual and smart points. Kellyanne Conway, Tony Kinnett, and Sean Davis. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will.
All right. Ahead, the FBI has a new warning for Tesla drivers to stay alert.